right, thanks for coming. In about 2 hours, the board of directors are going to meet downstairs and adopt our budget this evening. And the budget includes a significant investment towards the new rail cars, which everyone's really excited about. So we wanted to bring you in, be able to answer questions today, as well as tell you what's at stake of the sustainability future of BART. So first, I'd like to bring up Grace Kreniken, our general manager. We have spellings of everyone's names in the press packet and their titles as well.
She's thinner than I am. Good afternoon, and thanks for coming today. I'm Grace Kreniken, General Manager. This evening, we will present the final version of the fiscal year 2014 budget to BART's Board of Directors. The budget is a down payment on BART's future. BART's brand is reliability, and this budget reflects BART's commitment to our riders who depend on our service. It's a budget which improves and increases our service and helps to maintain that reliability I spoke of. There is a slight fare increase included in the budget, and the board has dedicated the revenue from that fare increase to be reinvested in our rail system and in our service. Specifically, the three major projects that money goes to are the new train control system, the 1,000 cars, new rail cars, and the Hayward Maintenance Complex. And I'll have Paul Overseer talk you through those in a few minutes. Paying for these essential capital improvements is a paramount priority. It must be a shared responsibility because the Bay Area benefits from BART, whether you ride BART or not. Our riders should not have to foot the entire bill to fortify BART for the next 40 years of service. BART's own budget and our 10-year financial outlook must be realistic, and costs must be controlled. Our challenge is to build an understanding among our union leaders that our valued employees must be greater partners in the district's financial sustainability. Our employees need to share in the financial future of BART in the same way that we have asked our riders and will continue to ask our taxpayers to do. These charts over here show the dramatic increase in the cost of providing health care, health insurance, pension benefits for our employees. I believe that we can find a balance between compensation for employees and setting aside the financial resources at BART to keep a safe, reliable, and robust public transportation system. The budget before the board tonight exemplifies the values of system reinvestment and improvement. Excuse me. It calls for more new seat covers and new flooring. It calls for a commitment to safe and clean stations. Third, it calls for better training for our employees in dealing with troubled and challenging patrons. Fourth, it includes continued efforts on AB 716 to ban people from our stations if they assault or harass our workers. And fifth, the budget includes the addition of critical positions lost in the economic downturn to keep our stations clean. BART riders can be confident that the board is looking out for their future, both at the bargaining table and in the budget. And now I'd like to ask Carter Mao, our Assistant General Manager for Budget and Administration, to come forward and give you a little bit of background on the budget. Carter?
Thank you, Grace. Again, my name is Carter Mao. I am the Assistant General Manager of Administration and Budgets here at BART. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fiscal year 14 budget that covers from July 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2014. We have been in development of this budget for over 6 months now. We have brought many presentations to our Board of Directors and have had public hearings on it. We will be bringing the budget to the board for adoption tonight. We view this as an interim budget until the labor negotiations are finalized. Once those labor negotiations are finalized, we will revise the budget and bring it back to the board for adoption. The budget we are bringing before the board today totals about $1.5 billion, about equally split between our operating budget and our capital budget. I think there are a few important things worth noting in this budget that Grace talked about a little bit. First is $46 million that we will be allocating toward our new rail car project. You can see some of the graphics here on my left. These are what the new rail cars we think are going to look like. This is $46 million of a multi-year investment that we will be making to buy 1,000 new rail cars here at BART. We also have $7.5 million in our budget dedicated to what we call the big three projects. That is the rail cars, that is the new train control system, and that is the Hayward Maintenance Complex. Our Assistant General Manager of Operations will be talking a little bit about those projects later. But we do have a few smaller, more customer-oriented initiatives that we have in our budget, including more secure bicycle parking at our stations. We are going to be adding staff to make our stations cleaner and brighter. We'll be making a significant investment in upgrading the signage at our stations to make it easier to get through our stations and to know where to go when you get off the train. We are making about $13 million worth of investments in new rail for our system. This should make for a smoother and quieter ride for our customers. And we have about $5 million in our budget for more security cameras at our stations for monitoring and trying to make our stations more secure. That is just a real high overview of what's in our budget for fiscal year 14. The fiscal year 14 assumes that the current benefit packages that our employees now enjoy will continue. You can see the cost of those benefit packages here on my right. Those benefits include the cost to the district for pensions and the cost for the district for medical cost. You can see they have been rising quite significantly over the last decade, and we need to try to contain those costs in our future budget, and we are attempting to do that in our labor negotiations with our employee unions. Again, this is a very high overview of what's in our budget. I would encourage anyone with more questions to grab a copy of our resource manual or to go online, which details much more that's in our budget and can talk in detail about some of the initiatives I mentioned. I'm now going to turn it over to Paul Overseer, our Assistant General Manager of Operations.
Thank you, Carter. As Carter said, my name is Paul Overseer. I'm the Assistant General Manager of Operations here at BART. I'd like to say a few words regarding this budget and labor negotiations from the standpoint of operations. We are very proud of the service that we provide. We're proud of the fact that BART is now carrying over 400,000 riders every single weekday, and that we do so consistently in a safe and reliable manner. Our customers have very high expectations of us, and justifiably so. But there's a flip side to this good news story, and that is that the system is now more than 40 years old. Many of the systems that keep BART reliable and on time, much of the equipment that our riders count on to give them a safe and convenient trip is old. It's more than 40 years old. It's beyond or near the end of its useful life, and the time has come to make a major investment in those systems and in that equipment. If we don't do that, there is a real reality that our reliability will begin to suffer over the coming years, and that we won't be able to meet the increased demand, the ridership demand that has been placed on us. Our goal is to remain the backbone of the region's transportation network, and that means to continue to grow in terms of the ridership to the point where our goal is within the next decade or so to be in a position to carry not 400,000 riders a day, not 500,000 riders a day, but we really think BART has to be in a position to carry upwards of 750,000 riders a day. And that's what these three projects that I want to just say a few words about relate directly to. The rail cars have already been mentioned. We are well underway with the rail car project. Ultimately, we would like to purchase 1,000 rail vehicles, and those cars will replace the very oldest fleet in the entire country. BART's cars are older than any other transit systems, and we run them more miles per year than any other transit system. It's time to replace those vehicles, not only to maintain and improve on the reliability that we have today, but also because of the increased capacity that additional rail cars will give us. The rail car project for 1,000 cars we estimate is about a $3.2 billion with a B project. BART's share of that is about $774 million. The second of the big three projects, which is directly related to the rail cars, is to replace our train control system. Train control system at BART is essentially a traffic management system. It's the system that controls the movement of the trains. And our train control system is also original equipment, more than 40 years old at this point. It's in need of replacement because it's not as reliable as it used to be, and it limits our capacity. With our existing train control equipment, we can only run 24 trains an hour into San Francisco. We think that with a new train control system, not only will we be more reliable, but we'll be able to increase that count of trains going into San Francisco per hour from 24 to 30 trains an hour. That may not sound like a lot, but that's a 25% improvement in capacity. And the third project of the big three we call Hayward Maintenance Complex. It's an expansion of our maintenance facilities in the Hayward Yard area. It's essential to maintaining and improving the reliability not only of the new cars as they come in, but of the old cars that are going to be with us for a while. And secondly, the Hayward Maintenance Project, which is about a $400 million project, will give us a leg up as BART expands southwards into San Jose and towards Santa Clara. So with that, I think the choices from our standpoint are pretty clear. We need to make these investments now in these projects to position ourselves for the future if we want to continue to be the backbone of the Bay Area's transit system, if we want to continue to meet our customers' expectations. The alternative is to turn people away at the door, if you will, because we don't have adequate capacity on the system to carry everybody that wants to ride BART, and or to drive people away because the system isn't as reliable as they've come to expect and as they want. Thank you, and with that, I'm going to turn it back to Grace.
So you can see what's at stake here is our ability to provide reliable service, both for our existing customers and trying to grow as a transit property up to 750,000 riders. And we think we have a good budget that gets us started in that direction. So with that, I think we'll take some questions. Leisha, is that what we had in mind? Labor update. You want a labor update? Okay. Paul, would you like to give the labor update? Come on up. We exchanged proposals April 1st, and we've been actively negotiating since about mid-May. And so we've been actively negotiating about a month. Paul, why don't you stand behind the microphone and give them some specifics? I'm sorry.
Probably knock this down.
Yeah, Paul's
So we are in active labor negotiations. The themes from BART's standpoint during these negotiations are sustainability and normalization. Sustainability in the sense that we want the system to be economically sustainable so that we're around for another 40 years or another 140 years. Sustainable from an operational standpoint, which really goes to the three projects that I just described to you so that we continue to maintain the high levels of reliability and continue to provide adequate capacity for the people that want to ride BART. When we say normalization, it goes to these charts. It has to do with the fact that it's time that BART employees share in the risk of the rather generous benefit package that the district offers. As you can see from these charts, BART is a member of CalPERS. CalPERS charges for the retirement program, charges an employer share and an employee share. However, at BART, the employee share is also paid for by the employer. And that's why on this chart you see that the employee pension contribution at BART is zero, as in no dollars. So we as BART employees do not contribute right now to the cost of the pension that we receive after we retire from BART. The other chart that you see here has to do with medical costs. Right now, everybody at BART pays approximately $92 per month for medical coverage. Now, that's independent of whether you are a single person whose plan costs maybe $700 a month, or whether you have a family with children and BART pays approximately $1,900 a month for that plan. It doesn't matter. The share that you pay towards that plan is $92, which is roughly 5% of the overall premium, depending on which plan you're in. So let me just finish. So our goal is to have our employees work with us so that we can maintain both of these generous benefit packages at the same time as we maintain the economic viability of the district, at the same time as we put aside the dollars in our budget to pay for projects like this. So with that.
What do you want the employees to pay? What are you trying to give the employees to equalize this?
Well, we're not going to negotiate in public. I think what we've said is that we want the employees to share in not only the current cost of these programs, of these generous benefits, but also as important as that is the notion of risk sharing. We all know that medical costs have been going up at double-digit rates. There are those that say that the increase in the cost of medical benefits is going to become greater in the short term. We want our employees to share in the risk of those benefits so that there's an equal sharing, at least in terms of future cost increases between ourselves, the district, and the employees.
I'm sorry, but you said a generous benefits package, and talking to some of the union members.
Director, thank you. Glad to be at least invited to the press conference at 3:53. Go ahead, sorry.
Hi. So you mentioned a generous benefits package to the union members, and in talking to some of them, they are concerned about the very generous benefits and golden parachutes on the part of the previous head. And I'm curious, has there been any examination on management salaries, on upper salaries, and possibly finding ways to trim as well there, and not just asking for concessions from the union members?
Thank you for the question. We have a beginnings of a comp and class study that's been done, a draft, and it shows that the frontline employees are at pretty much the top of their pay for the work that's done around the country, and that the management employees are very much in the middle of what's being paid. So in terms of what they're being paid, I think we've got a pretty good handle on that. In terms of cuts that are done, we present the budget to the board once a year, and we have updates throughout the year, and I think we're probably properly staffed in both cases. We've asked them for some ads in the budget for the, I think mostly frontline workers. And so I think we feel we're fairly right-sized in both categories and are making some additions, trying to recover, particularly in the cleaning of the stations in this round of budgets.
And I'm sorry, can you just define 2 points? One, the study that you were doing, when it was done and what it involves, and then secondly, what you mean by ads for frontline employees.
We have what's called a classification and compensation draft report that's out there, and all I've heard is a short briefing on that a couple of months ago. So it's got to be finalized. That's the study I'm referring to. And then when I say a couple of ads, I'm talking about we have added some frontline employees on station cleaning. What else?
Mostly on station cleaning and also.
I'm sorry, do you mind just going to?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
The focus in terms of the additions that are proposed in this year's budget have to do with stations. There is a real focus because of the prior budget problems that we've had. We've had to cut a lot of cleaners out of our budget, and so the stations do not look as good as we'd like them to look. So the focus in this year's budget is on enhancing the station experience for our customers by providing cleaner stations, by providing stations that have less clutter, by providing stations that have escalators that are working. That's a real theme in this budget is the stations themselves.
So hiring?
There is some hiring, absolutely, there's some hiring involved in that. I think directly related to stations, if you include, we want to do some crisis intervention training to help our frontline employees and police officers deal with people that have mental issues. The additional positions are in the neighborhood of 17 or so.
BART called for a mediator earlier this week. Where do things stand in terms of your request for a mediator?
Well, the request was, you want me to handle that?
Sure.
Okay. The request was made to the State Mediation Service. It's not a terribly unusual request. I mean, all the BART negotiations I've been involved in have had the mediators come in at some point in the process. Maybe a little bit unusual in that this time BART was the one to ask the mediator to come in. We felt that perhaps we could accelerate the process a little bit in terms of meeting the June 30th deadline for a new contract if we asked for the mediator earlier rather than later. As I understand it, the unions have agreed to bring the mediator in, and I don't think they were here today, but certainly by tomorrow or the beginning of next week, we expect to see the mediators here.
The unions are concerned because you've only been talking for 3 weeks. And they said they talked to this sort of a lot earlier, much earlier than they started. You used the same proposal back in April, you've been talking for 3 weeks. You have 2 weeks to go before the deadline. So I think the writing public wants to know, what are the chances of another BART strike?
Let me just, one of the reasons we asked for a mediator, quite frankly, is we didn't see the urgency at the table. And that concerned us. There wasn't the amount of back and forth going on in the negotiations, both the amount of time that we were spending at the table and how that time was being spent. It wasn't as productive as we would like it to have been. So that was our reason for asking for the mediator. Quite frankly, given that, as you pointed out, typically we start on April the 1st, we got off to a late start this time. We would have expected a greater level of urgency. So we thought, okay, let's ask for the mediator, let's move things along. We still have a June 30th deadline. I'm not going to speculate what's going to happen. We're going to remain optimistic and be at the table, and we know that both sides will bargain hard. For us, this is about sustainability and normalization, and we think there are some very, very important economic issues on the table here that will determine the future of this transit agency and whether we're able to maintain the level of reliability that the public expects, whether we're able to make the capital investments that we need in order to grow with the region.
Is it true that employees haven't received a raise in 5 years?
No. What we've got is over the past 4 years, the employees have received $3,000 over increment payments. In addition to that, their medical and pension benefits have gone up significantly, the equivalent of 1% a year raise. At the end of the contract, they will be receiving a 1% raise as a result of some measures that were put in place and we met. So fair increase happened and a few other criteria were met. And in addition to that, the overtime has gone up about 15% a year in terms of what the frontline employees have been receiving. So they have been receiving compensation over that period of time.
Is it because you're understaffed that there's more overtime?
No, I don't believe so. I believe we have an attendance problem that we need to address with the frontline staff. And that when someone's not in attendance, and these are positions that have to be filled by contract, or in the case of train operators, the trains don't run without a train operator, then we have to staff a higher amount to make up for those absences.
What do you mean by attendance? Oh, sorry.
The absences I'm talking about are, what's the word I'm like?
Unscheduled absences.
Yeah, we have unscheduled absences on frontline employees, on average for our frontline employees of 40 unscheduled absences a year. 40 unscheduled absences, 40 days. And that's hard to manage a schedule when you've got that kind of absence. So that causes us to add staff to make sure that they're available to fill in.
Is that like people calling in sick, things like that?
It's people calling in sick, but it's also unexcused absences. It does not include things like military leave. It does not include jury duty, those kinds of things.
No,
It does not include vacations. These are sick, call-in sick, unscheduled absences. And so you can appreciate someone calling in sick. When you're sick, we want our employees to stay home, but 40 days a year on average for frontline employees just seems very extreme.
And that's 40 days per person?
40 days per person per year. That's where we are right now.
I've been in this place many times for BART negotiations. I've listened as BART has blamed the unions. I've listened as the unions have blamed BART. What is it going to take to get a deal?
I have a great set of employees. I love them. They work hard when they're here. And we are at the table talking to them right now. Paul referenced the mediator that's been brought in. That's because we'd like to finish this deal by June 30th, a couple days after. So it's going to take some conversation. It's going to take negotiations. This is a negotiation, and I think the thing we're concerned about is it wasn't happening.
Why wasn't it happening?
You're at the table. You're close to.
We don't know why it wasn't happening, and at this point, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we have a June 30th contract expiration date. We want to get to a deal with our employees that's fair to them and that addresses the issues that we have in terms of economic sustainability, normalization of some of these costs. We think we can get there, and we're prepared to negotiate as long and as hard as it takes to meet that June 30th deadline.
You say you're not going to negotiate it in the public, but this is a negotiation tactic to hold a news conference to present your side of the story. So how much more do you want the employees to contribute, like for medical costs?
Again, we're not going to get into specifics about what we are asking for at the table. What I will say, because there has been a little bit of negotiation in the public, and that's not a good thing. It may seem like a good thing, but it's not. But I will say that statements that have been made about what we're asking are overstated, and statements that are being made about what they are asking for is understated. Now, that's the way negotiations go. And the idea is, you start out here and you move towards the middle. And that's the reason why we asked for a mediator, because we want to accelerate that process because we only have about 2 weeks to go at this point.
And you mentioned that you've done salary comparisons, but have you done any research on what the industry standard is or what other comparable cities have in terms of pension and medical insurance contribution?
Yes, we have.
And where do those lie? And where is BART in comparison with those?
BART is an outlier. The number of agencies that, what we looked at is we looked at local municipalities and counties in the Bay Area. We looked at transit agencies in the Bay Area, and we are an outlier. I'm not going to say that in every case we are the most generous, but we are in that direction. There are not too many agencies around. There are a few, but there are not too many municipalities around, not too many counties around, not too many transit agencies around where myself and all the employees that work here don't pay $1 towards their pension plan.
Let me just add that if you go to bartlabor.gov, bartlabornews.com, we have the comparisons of the public agencies, and on the website for pension and medical, as much as we have. Medical is all over the map, and generally speaking, in terms of pension, most people contribute something. But in a BART, we don't contribute anything.
Is this a case of your predecessors being too generous in the contracts that they agreed to?
I really can't comment on my predecessors. BART has a contract that's held up at union meetings as the gold standard. And we are right now attempting to just get us into normalization of where we are. And I think it's going to be good for the riders, and I think it's going to be good for the Bay Area. And we're not asking the union to pick up everything. We're just asking the union to pick up their share of our future liabilities and just get into the normal range where the other public agencies and other private sector businesses are in the Bay Area.
Now, the one thing that you didn't mention, there's pension and there's the medical costs. What about salary? What about wage increases? I know you're not negotiating in public, but is that part of what's at the table or your package?
We'll be talking to the unions about that at the table. It's a compensation issue, and anything comment you want to make on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, both sides started out with identical proposals for wages, a fair and equitable pay increase. So we should have just ended it right there and said we had a deal, but it doesn't work that way. So we have a wage proposal on the table that is greater than what they got last time, and they obviously have a wage proposal on the table. I think they've made theirs public. Again, we're not trying to be difficult when we say we don't want to negotiate in public, but we've got a lot of work to do at the table, and to engage in too much public dialogue at this point is going to slow the process down, not speed it up, and we're interested in getting to a deal. But there are wage proposals on the table. The BART proposal is a number greater than 0.
I think another piece is we're here today to talk about the budget, and because union negotiations are going on, and because the budget does call for a fair increase in January, I want you to understand how they all fit together. Mostly we're here to say that this budget really emphasizes an investment in the system itself, and I think cleans up issues that we've had, like the stations, and we've got, I think, a good plan forward that the riders are going to benefit from.
Does it also address the unscheduled time off?
The negotiations will address the unscheduled time off as much as we can get to the items on the table. Anything else?
I have a quick question. That
Sure.
Just, is there any particular reason why fiscal year 2009 appears to be this huge jump
Or which one?
on the medical insurance?
Oh, that's a very good question. In our previous negotiations, there was negotiations and contract language regarding retiree medical benefits. And we had a plan to basically ramp up our contributions to the retiree medical trust in order to cover that liability. And that's why you see this large increase going from 2009 to 2013. You start to see the ramp up of medical contributions on behalf of the district to cover the retiree medical liability that we have for that benefit that we offer our employees.
So that was just a one-time.
We actually had a ramp up plan for about 3 or 4 years, and we have finished that ramp up plan this year.
Thanks, Carter. Okay. Thank you very much.
Do you expect the budget to be approved?
I hope so. We've been working through the board. I expect it to be approved, yes. Thank you.